All right. Hey, what's up? It's Mr. Ippolito with the core paragraph of the Declaration of Independence. We're going to do this in 8 minutes or less. So let's get rocking and rolling. First of all, when I say the core paragraph, what I'm talking about is it's the second paragraph, right, of the Declaration of Independence. The first part is when in the course of human events, blah, blah, blah. That's the introductory paragraph. Now, this is when we're getting into like the meat of it, right? And what I did was I reorganized it just so that it was kind of broken up a little bit more. And this is all in the original. It is all one paragraph, but I have broken it up so that it's a little bit easier to understand. So let's go ahead and jump right in. We hold these truths to be self-evident. So he's saying the following truths should be obvious, should be self-evident, we should be able to see these very, very clearly. Number one, that all men are created equal. And this was a pretty revolutionary statement for the time, right? The fact that we're saying that all humans, all men are created equal when we have kings and queens back in Europe, when we have enslaved people here in the Americas. It's a pretty bold statement to say that all people are created equal. So that's a pretty bold statement from him. The number two truth that we hold to be self-evident, that they, meaning all men, all humans, are endowed by their creator, are given by God certain unalienable rights, natural rights. These are rights that we are born with. That's what natural rights are. Rights that you're born with that cannot be taken away from you. What are those rights? He moves on now to number three, talking about those rights. That among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that to secure these rights, these natural rights, these unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, governments are instituted among men. Now, this could be the most important statement of the entire piece, so I want to direct your attention to what exactly does this mean. Well, here's what it means. Thomas Jefferson is saying the purpose of government is to protect the rights of the people. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. In other words, the sole purpose of government is not to enrich you, the king, is not to make the king or the monarchy better or the country stronger. The purpose of government is to protect, the number one purpose of government is to protect the rights of the people. So that's what he says in number 4, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers. Now, he could have just said deriving their powers from the consent of the governed, but he throws in the word just, meaning fair. So in other words, government is going to derive its just powers. In other words, it's going to get its power from free and fair elections, fair, justice, equality, and that power is going to come from the consent of the governed. In other words, we the people, we give our permission to the government to rule us. So that's consent of the governed. We give the government permission to rule us. And then finally, number 5, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, in other words, when any government is not doing its part, doing its role, performing its duty to protect the rights of the people, then it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles, yada, yada, yada. In other words, when government fails in its job to protect rights, the people can change the government or they can abolish the government. So we can change or get rid of our current government if our current government is not doing its job, which is protecting the rights of the people. And that's what he's accusing King George III of doing, is not protecting the rights of the people, among other things. So that's like the meat of this paragraph. But I went ahead and broke it up a little bit more so that we can see a little bit more of it, right? So let's continue. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. In other words, he's saying this is not just a hissy fit. We are not just having a temper tantrum where it's like, oh, we're not getting our way. We're upset. We want to overthrow the government. Thomas Jefferson says that's not what's happening here. We are not doing this for light and transient causes. We're not just throwing a little hissy fit because we didn't get our way. Because, he continues, people are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable, right? So human beings are willing to suffer through it to a point. Like, we as humans, we can put up with a lot of abuse. We can put up with a lot of nonsense. We can put up with just not having a very good government sometimes. But, he continues, when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism. Again, we're painting King George as the despot or the tyrant, right? Someone who's abusing his power. Then if this is the case, if there has been a long pattern of abuses and usurpations, not just like, yeah, government kind of sucks. It's not that. It is the government has repeatedly, over and over and over and over and over again, has been abusing our rights or taking away our rights or never giving us those rights to begin with. It is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. This is right out of National Treasure when he says those with the ability to do something have the responsibility to do something. So he's talking about those founding fathers. He's talking about those revolutionaries, right, of 1776. He's talking about John Adams. He's talking about himself, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, John Hancock, all of, whether you're in the Second Continental Congress and you're voting for this Declaration of Independence, or you're out in the field in the army with George Washington fending off the redcoats, right, trying to protect Americans. If you have the ability to do something, you have the responsibility to do something. So we're going to put our necks out. We're going to put our lives on the line for this because we believe that it is something important, because we're standing up for our rights. He says, such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies. We've waited long enough. We have waited long enough, and now it is time to stand up for what is right. And then the final part of that paragraph, you can see right here, is then just sort of leading up to the grievances against King George III. And then after this, it is like just bullet point by bullet point by bullet point. He has done this, he has done this, he has done this, he has done this, and just a litany, a list of all of the abuses of King George III. So that is the core paragraph of the Declaration of Independence. You also got a little bit of insight into how Mr. Ippolito does his annotation. Like if I have a primary source document, this is one of the ways that I might annotate it, right? In other words, kind of mark it up and write on it and draw on it, just so that I can learn better from it. And maybe this can be an example of how you might mark it up or draw on it or interact with the document. That's ultimately what annotation is interacting from the document. All right, I promised you that we would talk about this and get it all done in under 8 minutes, and I now see we're going to get it done in under 7 minutes and 30 seconds. Thanks so much for your time, for listening, and for learning with me. Have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.